According to new research from Amazon Ads and Skift, 97% of travelers will take a leisure trip in the next year. These customers are looking for more than a deal. They're looking for a new experience. Travelers discover destinations through entertainment, recommendations, and everyday moments, with 1 in 4 finding their next destination while streaming shows and movies. That's where Amazon Ads comes in. Amazon Ads Solutions empowers advertisers to engage travelers across Prime Video, Twitch, and shopping channels with personalized messaging that inspires and converts. Ready to transform your travel marketing? Visit advertising.amazon.com to learn more.
I'm Mike Weiss, and you're listening to Sweet Success.
You've just checked in to Sweet Success. Join me, Katie Cline, for exclusive conversations with hotel executives, hospitality leaders, and industry innovators. Together, we'll uncover the strategies and techniques these masters of hospitality relentlessly refine. Whether you're already in the industry or just starting out, tune in every week to unlock the secret to your sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sweet Success. I'm your host, Katie Cline, and today I'm excited to welcome Mike Weiss to the show. Mike is the co-founder and co-CEO of Trailborn Hotels and Resorts, a brand that's focused on redefining boutique hospitality by merging elevated design, community connection, and access to nature. With properties set in the heart of America's most beautiful destinations, from national parks and ski towns to pristine beaches and wine country, Trailborn is bringing a fresh, design-forward offering to outdoor-centric destinations. Mike, thank you so much for being here today.
Katie, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
You have had such an interesting path into hospitality, starting in real estate, private equity, and investment banking at Goldman Sachs, and then, of course, places like Compass and Rise. When did you first know you wanted to build something in hospitality specifically?
Yeah, I think Trailborn and Castle Peak in some ways is the culmination of everything I've done in my career, not necessarily by design. One thing just kind of naturally led to the next. When I was at Goldman Sachs I did investment banking and then real estate private equity there. That's when I started looking at hotels for the first time. So I started investing in hotels at Goldman, and then I started getting into entrepreneurship, and I wanted to go and build something. And I went out to business school. While I was in business school, I was lucky enough to spend some time at Airbnb, back when Airbnb only had like 30 people there. And so that furthered my interest in hospitality. And then after business school, I worked on startups. I was at Compass. I was a co-founder at Compass and ran the product team there. I was at Maple running growth there. I started a coffee business. So a lot of businesses in and around real estate, hospitality, food and beverage. For me, I'm not the person who, when I was in high school, knew that I wanted to be in the hotel world, right? Mm-hmm. I'm passionate about building products and experiences that people want and need. And so that's kind of what led me to all of those startup opportunities. And Trailborn and Castle Peak was just that. It was sort of it was the center of a bunch of concentric circles that me and my business partner, Ben, were excited to pursue, which was, is this a big market? Do we have some kind of a competitive edge here? Is there a real consumer need that we need to fill? And is this something that we're both passionate about and want to spend the rest of our lives building? And so that's kind of like how we got to where we are.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that founding story, because you created Trailborn 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
So tell us about it. Like, how did the idea come, or like, how did you meet Ben?
Yeah. So Ben and I have known each other socially for most of our lives. Wow. What's interesting about our partnership is that it was formed before we had finalized an idea. And so we had the view that the world is going to change. We don't know what kind of pandemics will come our way, how markets will shift, how products will shift. And we want to be partnered up with someone that we can endure all of that with, and can navigate all of that with, that kind of views the world. We view the world the same way, but we complement each other. And so we decided to partner up before finalizing our idea. Now, we were both interested in real estate, interested in hospitality. We knew that we wanted to do something in that space. But we both left the other things that we were doing and said, let's go and build something together and commit to each other. And so that's how it started. We were looking at a bunch of different ideas together and found ourselves in Colorado and staying in a Best Western where we were paying way too much money. And the light bulb moment kind of went off, which is we love traveling to these outdoor destinations. And when we're in these outdoor destinations, we want a product and experience that is as amazing as the destination itself. And we said, let's go and build that there's a real need for that in this, in the US, and internationally. Let's go and build that. And so that's kind of how it started.
And you said you guys have known each other for such a long time. How did you first meet?
It's interesting. We have a bunch of different connections. So our parents were actually friends. And so we met when we were kids. Ben went to high school with my sister. And then Ben ended up marrying the younger sister of one of my best friends. So we kind of have a bunch of touch points, which
the universe was forcing you guys together.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was lucky or good, but I think we are actually more complementary to each other than we initially thought, which is incredibly valuable in our partnership. And we put in the time up front to make sure, because we knew each other, we liked each other. We knew we were both good people and like wanted to spend time together, but it took time to make sure, all right, if we were going to go and build something together, how would we split up the work? What would we do? And we spent as much time as we could up front before we partnered up. And then, now we spend every day talking to each other all day. And so we've really gotten to know each other and learned how to flex into what each other is best at.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you guys left the other things that you were working on really before an idea had formed. So that's like a huge gamble in and of itself.
It was, but we both, I had been a part of a bunch of other early stage businesses. Ben at his core is an entrepreneur. And I think, Ben loved what he was doing, but he just felt that urge to go and build something and create something. And so we just both knew it's what we wanted to do, and we're betting on ourselves, and we decided to pull the trigger and go for it.
That's something I've been really struck by when you're speaking right now and with other people I've interviewed as well. Like, do you almost feel like entrepreneurs are born? Like, are you cut from a different cloth than someone who is happy being an employee? Or does everyone want to be an entrepreneur and some people just take the risk and try it?
I don't know if everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but it's one of those things where there are days when you wake up and you're like, what am I doing? And there are days when you wake up and you're like, I'm the luckiest person in the world. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why both of us wanted to do this with a partner. It's really hard. I mean, I envy those people that can do it on their own. I think it's really hard to go and do something like what we are doing by yourself. And so for me, I mean, it turns out both my father and Ben's father were both entrepreneurs and founders. And so I think it was a little bit in our blood. But Ben and I both started out in kind of bigger corporate finance jobs before we started something. And I didn't feel ready to go and build something until I had kind of learned as much as I possibly could.
Yeah. That's such a good point of like getting the background. And like you said, you didn't grow up thinking, I definitely want to go into hospitality one day. It was all of those experiences that led you there. And before we started recording, you were telling me how Trailborn owns all of the hotels that you guys have. And obviously with your background in real estate and investment banking, like I imagine, like you said, you were looking at investments in hotels before you were even building something yourself. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like what makes a good deal, and particularly for Trailborn?
Yeah. So one thing to clarify, so we've built two businesses. We have a investment and development company called Castle Peak Holdings, that Ben and I are co-CEOs of, and Castle Peak acquires, develops, owns all of the properties. And then we have Trailborn, which is the brand and the management company.
Oh, wow. That is so smart.
We have these two companies that are working together. Today, they're both focused on the same thing, which is acquiring, developing, opening, operating Trailborns. But we have these two separate companies. And I think, for that's a lot to take on, right? We're doing a lot. Another reason why it's helpful to have a partner in kind of all that we're doing. And what Ben and I have done is to make it clear for the team and to hold ourselves and each other accountable. We've split up the work and made it clear that if we are both co-CEOs of this business, we need to make it crystal clear for everyone at the company and external people who is responsible for what. And so Ben oversees more of the day-to-day acquisition, financing, development work. I oversee more of the day-to-day brand, marketing, operations, design, all of that stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. So you're essentially building an ownership company and then a management company. Right now, they're working together. When you look long term, and maybe you can or can't share on this, was the intention of building them separately so that they could have different interests at one point? They could have a sale, for example.
Yeah. When we set out to build this, our focus is on Trailborn, but in building Trailborn, we have also built the infrastructure, the team, the experience set to go and do this again if we find the opportunity to do that. We set it up the way we set it up because that's how the industry is generally structured, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are investment firms and development companies that is what they're great at. They raise funds that's financially and organizationally structured a certain way. And then there are brands and management companies. And so we wanted to set this up to be reflective of how the industry works, which gives us flexibility as we grow of, all right, well, maybe we want to launch another brand that the management company is managing. We can do that. Or maybe Castle Peak wants to invest in something other than Trailborns, and they can do that. So that's how we set it up.
That's so smart. I haven't heard many people approach it that way for a new brand. And I think that's so smart. Let's talk about Trailborn specifically. The brand's tagline is the official hotel of the great outdoors, which I think is so brilliant, super, super clear. How does Trailborn bring that to life?
Yeah, so it starts with the destination. So we are exclusively in what we call iconic outdoor destinations, which means that if you're going to go to a Trailborn, it's either going to be a bucket list, national or international destination that everyone wants to travel to, or what we talk about as a regional gem, like something that is somewhat undiscovered. People regionally know about it, but it's a place that when you get there, you're just wowed by it. And so that focus allows us to really be the best in the business at designing these spaces, operating these spaces, creating these experiences. And so we bring it to life through great design. Every Trailborn is going to have great design. Every Trailborn is going to have fun on-property experiences, whether that's our après hour where people come together and have a drink together, whether that's our S'morelier program where we have different ingredients for s'mores that we bring out, or things like sunrise yoga that we do on the lawn in Wrightsville Beach. And then we also have off-property guided excursions. And so, when you come to a Trailborn, you know that you're going to have access to all of the best things to go and do in that destination, whether that's surf lessons, or that's a sunrise hike up a mountain, or that's, mushroom foraging in the forest. So we will set all of that up for you to go and experience the destinations you're traveling to.
And I imagine building hotels, or maybe you're not building, maybe you're acquiring old assets and repurposing, you tell me, but particularly near national parks must be a challenge. So how are you approaching that? Are you looking at only new builds? Are you looking at restorations? What's the approach?
Yeah, so Trailborns exist near national parks, but the way we define iconic outdoor destinations is national parks, beach towns, ski towns, mountain towns, lake towns, wine country, anywhere where there is a draw that is bringing people to get outside. And to date, everything that we have done has been acquiring something and repositioning it. So we haven't done any ground up development to date. And I think that's partially for sustainability reasons, right? Our brand is focused on sustainability, and it's better for the environment to buy something than it is to build ground up. And also authenticity. Our brand is grounded in history and in celebrating the places in which we operate, and working with existing structures allows us to lean into that history and to lean into that kind of architecture. And so that's what we've done today. I think there are certainly challenges that come with doing that. First of all, just construction in these markets that are not near major metros. There's just fewer trades. There's, fewer contractors, which means that we just need to be that much more diligent when interviewing local contractors or identifying a traveling contractor that can come in and do the work for us. And managing through seasonality, construction through seasonality can also be challenging. Because, some of our markets, you don't want to miss that busy season. And so you got to get your construction done before you hit that busy season. But those challenges also create barriers to entry for us. And so while it's hard to do what we do, once it's done, the next guy is going to have the same challenges that we have.
Exactly. Do you have those same challenges once the hotel is open and operational? Is it hard to find talent and staff for the hotels?
Yeah. I mean, it can be. I think the good news is we don't need, like, we're not operating 1,000 key properties, right? So our staff doesn't need to be huge, but they need to be great. And so it's certainly harder in some markets than others. I think it helps us that we are a unique brand. We kind of approach the business a little bit differently than most hotels and most management companies, which make us an exciting opportunity for a lot of people that want to work in hospitality.
Yeah.
But there, we're in markets where it's not New York City, where you don't have a bunch of people that have said, I want to be in the hotel business for my career.
Right.
So you've got people who are just looking for a job. And so it's our job to convince them that this is the right path for them and to invest in them and train them so that they can become great at this craft. And the other challenge is we're just, by nature of what we're doing, we're spread all around the country, which means that we need to invest in our GMs and bring them to New York and do things like a GM summit so they feel connected to our headquarters. And everyone at headquarters needs to also be traveling to properties to have a pulse on what's happening in these markets. Who's this customer? Meeting with communities, meeting with partners. And so it just requires a lot of moving around. But everyone that works here loves it. They love hotels. And so they're happy to do that.
Yeah. How many hotels do you guys have now?
So we have two properties in Rocky Mountain National Park, where we've got a property in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, a property in Highlands, North Carolina, a property in the Grand Canyon. We're developing a property in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and developing two properties in Mendocino, California.
Wow, that's incredible. Talk about a bucket list worthy of destinations right there.
They're fun. They're fun places to travel to, for sure.
Definitely. So let's talk a bit about the design process, because that's obviously something so intrinsic to what you guys are doing. When you are looking at repositioning an asset that you've acquired, what does that design process look like from maybe an initial idea to actual opening day?
Yeah, it starts with studying the market. We have to understand who the customer is, what the local community is, what the competitors look like in that market. And that starts to formulate a plan on what is the right scope for the ultimate product we want to deliver. So then our team goes into a visioning exercise where we say, here are the amenities we need to do. Here's what we need to do to the guest rooms. Here are the new amenities that we want to build. Here's what the food and beverage experience is going to look like. And we put together what we call a visioning document, which is basically like a concept direction before we've even hired a designer or architect. And so we do all of our brand design and graphic design and experience design in-house. And we work with some of the best designers, interior designers, and architects in the industry to bring that to life. And so one of the big things that we do is create the vision before we've hired a designer to make sure that the designer that we're hiring can execute on that vision. It allows us to go out and really kind of understand, is this the right person? Have they delivered a product similar to this in the past? And are they the right thought partner to kind of take our vision and help mold it and make it theirs as well, and create something really special? And then, when we get in with the design partner, there's a onboarding process where we educate them on, here's what Trailborn is, here's what our vision is for this property, here's what our brand standards are that we need to make sure that we follow, here's our design ethos, and then let's work together to adapt these standards and adapt our ethos to this property, to this location. And I think something that's really special about Trailborn is every property is unique. It's not a cookie cutter box. Every property is localized effectively. And so the interior design reflects the place, the programming reflects the place, the art reflects the place. And that makes it, I think, a special brand.
We were talking before we started recording about we both have children. So I know this is going to be like asking you to pick a favorite child, but do you have a favorite property right now?
That is like asking me about my favorite child.
Depends on who's having the tantrum. It's the other one at that moment.
Exactly. I would say Wrightsville Beach, which is Trailborn Surf and Sound, is my current favorite. And I'll say that for two reasons. I think with every Trailborn, we learn a little something. That was the most recent one to open. We improve everyone a little bit with every process. And I think that execution was just really well done. Yeah. It also happens to be the easiest one to get to from New York, the New York area.
Yeah.
And it's more representative of the properties that we are looking at moving forward. And so that property is a little bit larger, a little bit, more of a traditional resort type setup. which is more of what we're looking at in the future.
It's interesting what you're mentioning about learning a little bit and getting better each time, because I imagine with your background, the real estate side of things was probably easier for you than the hospitality side of things when you first started. Now you've done so many of these and you've been immersed in this world. And like you said, having GM summits and really thinking about that hospitality side of it. I wonder, do those parts of your brain ever compete? Like, are you ever looking at an asset and you're like, financially, this makes no sense, but I can already see it. And I know that this would be an incredible hospitality experience, or vice versa?
Absolutely. I think what's interesting about my role is that is my job to take that angel and devil and figure out what is the right thing to do. Because we don't want to put the brand at risk. We also don't want to put our real estate investment at risk. And so it's identifying, how do we create this brand so that it is actually financially feasible for all of the real estate, while also creating something really special. And I think as we grow, my job shifts from being the one kind of actually doing that and being in every single decision to, if we're trying to open up multiple properties at a time, we've had to bring experts around the table on both sides. We have a great real estate investments team, acquisitions team, development team. They're experts in their craft. We also have great operators and great designers that are experts in their craft. And so the job kind of shifts from me kind of making that decision myself to how do we train the team to make those decisions together, which is not easy to do. And it's something that we are trying to get better at every single day, but it's what's required in order to scale the business.
I was going to ask you, how do you focus? Because I imagine you are interested in growing the brand and growing the footprint, looking at new properties and such. So it sounds like you have this development team. Do you give them, besides the context of what we've talked about, of what makes a location right for the Trailborn brand, do you give them any kind of steer, or is it come to me with ideas that make sense?
Yeah. So it starts with the market. And so we start by looking for a market that is ripe for a Trailborn. And so that's a market that performs well in any downturn or pandemic. It's sustainable. It has barriers to entry. It is an iconic outdoor destination, which means there's either millions of people traveling there, or it's a widely visited regional gem. And then once we've kind of identified what is the RevPAR of that market and how has it grown over the last 10 years, then we start to look at the property and we say, all right, within this market, what are the properties that we could acquire that fit the right mold for a Trailborn, which is, we try and look for something that's over 100 keys. So is it big enough? And does it have the bones to be a great 4-star property? Does it have great food and beverage space? Does it have a kitchen, or can we create that? And is it financially feasible to create that? Does it have the footprint to create the amenities, to create that on-site programming that we talked about? And so we really start with the market and identifying the markets that are right for Trailborn. Then we go and start to identify what are the properties within it. And then there's a whole process of underwriting a deal and putting a pro forma together and deciding if we want to move forward on it.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest trend that's going to shape the future of boutique hospitality over the next decade?
For us, it's the rise in experiential travel. It's the rise in outdoor destination travel. I think more than 3/4 of all consumers would rather spend their money on experiences versus material things. And so we're betting on people wanting to get outdoors, wanting to travel, want to go and experience something that they haven't done before. And in doing that, we're also betting on them wanting a boutique experience, a design-led experience with fun programming. And so that's kind of the bet that we've made. And so far it's been a good bet, but we'll see how things play out. And I think, we're going into markets and places where people have traveled for the last 100 years, and we think we'll travel for the next 100 years. And we're just trying to give them a better product and experience when they go to those places.
Absolutely. You yourself have been a part of multiple early stage teams and co-founded many companies, as you mentioned earlier. What lessons from those experiences have shaped how you've built Trailborn?
Yeah, I think one of the main things is when picking a idea or a path, it's solving a real pain point. So identifying a pain point and solving a real pain point. And then once you've done that, not thinking that the work is done, it's talking to customers, listening to customers, I mean, this has happened in every one of our businesses where we started with one product or one thing and it has evolved and shifted over time. Same thing has happened with Trailborn. And so you have to listen to that customer and be willing to admit when you're wrong or learn new things and adapt and iterate from there. I think some other things that will sound obvious it's all about the people. For us, we are trying to move so fast that we need to find a unique person that is both agile and can learn, is a first principle. We talk about as a first principle thinker that can solve problems that haven't been solved before, but also has the experience to know what to do on day one, because we're trying to move so quick that we can't sit around and give people 2 years to climb a learning curve.
Right.
And then, a couple other things I'd say are being self-aware, knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at. Ben and I are great at some things, and there's other things that we haven't done before and we're not great at, and we need to surround ourselves with those people that can do those things. And then the last thing I'd say is just forward momentum really matters. And there's going to be hiccups, especially in the hospitality business. There's going to be things that come up that you didn't anticipate. But staying optimistic, not getting stuck, and making decisions and moving forward is crucial.
Those are fantastic. I really liked what you just said about self-awareness too, because like you said, it might sound obvious, but I think we've all worked with or for someone who has lacked that entirely. And just to be able to say, like, I'm not the expert here, I'm going to learn this time, that actually positions people more as the expert, being able to say that than like trying to pretend they know everything.
For sure.
What do you think is the hardest decision you've had to make in building this brand so far?
I think the hardest thing that Ben and I are constantly debating is just what is the right speed and cadence to do everything, right?
Yeah.
We want to grow the business. We've positioned this brand to be something big, but we don't want to try and move so fast that we put the product at risk or put the experience at risk, or it creates imbalance. And so I think that's kind of the hardest thing that Ben and I debate and discuss is do we go and acquire 5 properties this year? Can we operate that? Do we have the team to do that? Can we move quickly enough? Can we do more than that, or do we have to do less than that? Right. And so that's the hardest thing to debate. I think Ben and I actually balance each other out pretty well there, where sometimes he'll push me on like, hey, let's go bigger, let's go faster. And I'll push him sometimes on, hey, we've got to think about the implications of this. And we've now learned each other so well that we can start to make some of those decisions on our own without even talking to the other person. It's
like that angel and devil, but now it's the two of you kind of balancing each other out of like, well, did you think about this or did you think about that? And you can have that inner dialogue before you're even talking to one another. Exactly. I love that. You've spoken so highly of Ben, and it sounds like you guys have such an amazing working relationship. For people who are thinking about starting something with a co-founder, what are the things that they should look for in a great co-founder?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is find someone who is good at their core and sees the world similarly to you, but complements you in other areas. So when you're starting a business, you're going to go through some really tough days, and you're going to have tough conversations, and you're going to have to be direct with each other and criticize each other sometimes and compliment each other other times. And just identifying someone that you really want to be in the trenches with, if there's a way to simulate that or a way to understand what that person is like when they are in the trenches, I think it's really helpful to know. But you can't be the exact same person. Otherwise, you guys are going to want to do the same things. You're going to have different competing visions for the same things. And so, finding someone that balances you out and from a skill set standpoint, like rounds you out a bit is also really important.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys have such growth aspirations. You've been talking a lot about speed and finding that right speed. Also with you as a dad, how do you think about that all elusive work-life balance?
It's not easy. It takes intention. And it's something that is a work in progress every day. But I love this business and I love my family. And I think that having people, like we have a lot of people at the company that have families, and having that understanding of each other and saying, hey, we want everyone to work their tail off and build something really special. But the only way you're ever going to do that is if you also are happy at home and your significant other is invested in what you're doing. And I think we have a pretty fun business where we can bring our families to our properties and show them what we're doing. I took my wife and kids to our Trailborn Surf and Sound property before we renovated it, and we had a great stay there. and they saw it then. And then this past summer, I took them back again and showed them the renovated product. And I think all of them were like, they understood what we do. And you can share that with them, which is a really special thing.
How few people get to do that, to really be able to show the before and after physically and get their family to actually live in it, experience it, and finally understand, like, okay, when dad has a call, this is what he's building. How cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun.
I love that. When you think about the next chapter for Trailborn, whether it's markets, partnerships, new concepts, what comes to mind and really what excites you the most?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think, first of all, we have hotels that are underway that are going to open next year. So I'm really excited about Trailborn Jackson Hole and Trailborn Mendocino, which are going to be opening up next year. And then I'm excited to acquire some additional properties. We have a great pipeline of properties that we're looking at. And so continuing to grow the portfolio as we get into next year as well. And I think you mentioned partnerships. I think we've been so focused this year on opening hotels. We've opened a bunch of hotels. We're getting them ramped. Ramping hotels takes time, energy, focus. I think next year, I want to have an even bigger focus on the right product partnerships and experience partnerships, where we're bringing like-minded brands and people around the table with us that really align with what we're building here at Trailborn. I think there's a ton of opportunity to do some really interesting things, which we just haven't had the bandwidth to focus on this year, but we'll be focused on that next year. And then I think looking a little further out, like I mentioned earlier, we've built the platform to do this, right? We know how to acquire, to renovate, to operate, to brand hotels and scale hotel concepts. And so thinking longer term, it's taking the team and taking the infrastructure that we've created and doing that again with another concept that we identify.
Very cool. Mike, I want to ask you the last 3 questions that I ask everyone. And the first is, what was the best hospitality experience you've ever had?
I will think about, I was at lunch. I was up in Cape Cod at a hotel having lunch with I had one daughter at the time. She was, I think, about 2 years old. And we had this really nice waitress who was just talking to Shay, my daughter Shay, talking to her, playing with her, and was super sweet to her. And Shay wanted dessert, but we were rushing to go somewhere else. And so we didn't get a chance to order dessert. So we went back to our room. And when we got to our room, there was a knock on the door. And they brought a little stuffed animal lobster and some chocolates. And there was a handwritten note that said, "Shay, I know you wanted something sweet, like, hope you enjoy." And that was a great hospitality experience, because someone paying attention, doing something that they didn't have to do, that surprise and delight. You know, if you make someone's 2-year-old daughter happy, like, they are the happiest people in the world. And so that was probably one of the best experiences.
I was thinking exactly that when you were saying that. I'm like, anytime you make our kids happy, you have earned a customer for life. And it's a great example because it's not expensive. It just took, like you said, her paying attention and going the extra mile.
100%.
On the flip side of that wonderful waitress, what was the worst hospitality experience you've ever had?
The worst hospitality experience I ever had was, it was almost a indirect hospitality experience where one of my colleagues that I work with went and stayed at the hotel, got bed bugs, brought those bed bugs back to our office, gave me bed bugs, and brought them back to my home. And so that was probably the worst hospitality experience that I've had.
That's horrible. You win. Of all of the episodes, that's the worst. Oh my gosh. Final question for you. What does hospitality mean to you? And is there anyone, a person, a brand that you think has truly mastered it?
So to me, hospitality means thinking about what a guest wants or needs before they've even thought about it or vocalized it, and putting that product or experience in front of them and, thinking on behalf of that guest. And so just one example of a place that I think has done it really well is actually not even a hotel, but a Discovery Land property that I went to, where Discovery Land, I think, just thinks about the family and thinks about the whole experience in a way where they're taking care of the parents, they're taking care of the kids. Every property is unique and different. And so I think they've done an incredible job creating a product for a specific customer. They've done a really great job.
Mike, thank you so much. This has been so enjoyable, and you have really encouraged me to go get outside, even though it's freezing outside right now.
Well, thanks, Katie. It's been great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, it's time for today's sweet summary, where I break down the key insights and actionable takeaways from today's conversation. Clarity is one of the most undervalued advantages in business and in life, and Mike has it in spades. To a guest, Trailborn feels extremely intentional. And so much of that is because of how deeply Mike understands his customer, who they are, where they want to go, and what they're looking for. Every decision he makes, from which deals to pursue, to how Trailborn shows up in design, to how quickly the brand scales, traces back to that North Star. It's a reminder that the strongest brands aren't built on fleeting trends, assumptions, or guesswork, but an intimate, almost instinctual grasp of the guest. Mike and Trailborn as a whole are betting big on the experience economy, and more specifically on people's enduring desire to get outside. And honestly, I think he's right. As we become more technologically connected than ever before, it can leave us feeling, well, disconnected, craving something more grounded, more tactile, more real. A return to nature, a return to people being present, a return to meaningful time with the people we love. We spent a lot of time talking about entrepreneurship, and it's clear that Mike was destined to build something, to create. I was really struck by the respect and admiration with which he spoke about his co-founder. And shouldn't we all aim for that in the most important relationships in our lives? Someone who balances us, who sees what we miss, who slows us down when we're moving too fast, and pushes us forward when the time or the opportunity is right. Because entrepreneurship, like so many worthwhile pursuits in life, can be deeply lonely. And having a true partner, someone equally committed to the mission, doesn't just make the journey more sustainable, it makes the pursuit of building something meaningful feel far more collaborative, deliberate, and dare I say, human. And that concludes another episode of Sweet Success. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We all know how important those 5-star reviews are. I also want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future guests, new topics to cover, or even just want to say hi, don't be shy. Message me through our website, sweetsuccesspodcast.com, or on social media @sweetsuccesspodcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Cline, and I'm super excited to see you all next week.